This month, I'd like to talk to you about basic stitching methods for pointe shoes. It's important that you have all your tools organized and ready to go. And you're going to mark the dancer's arch. I'm marking about the midpoint of her arch. The bottom arch is called the transverse arch. I'm also going to mark the outside there. The bottom arch is called the transverse arch, and you want to find the highest point in the transverse arch, or where it meets the ankle, right, or the shin bone. Right? And then you can see where I've made my pen marks, right? And you can even reinforce the pen mark if you feel like it's not clear enough. You get a generous amount of the ribbon. I'm going to cut the ribbon once, right? So just even it up, and I'm cutting it once again. So I have 4 pieces in all. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and singe the edges of all the ribbons, right? And I'm just going to hand you those off as I do it, right? And you want to seal the edges because the edges will fray. Elastic, once again, they usually give it to you in one continuous piece. Sometimes they pre-cut it for you. If they haven't, here's my one continuous piece. I'm going to fold it in half, and all I'm going to do is cut the elastic right there. Very important that you pick left and right in your pointe shoes because you're breaking that shoe in for that individual foot, and you don't want to go and switch sides because you're sort of customizing it for that individual foot. So let's just worry about the left shoe right now. So let's go ahead and take that ribbon piece and place the center of the ribbon on that mark that we've made. That's terrific. And you don't have to go that far down, right? And what you're going to do is take a very strong needle. I would suggest something kind of thick. And I've got some really good thread here. You could use unwaxed dental floss if you like. I've got a really high-level cotton thread. It's going to hold together better. It's not going to break while I'm trying to work with it. And the stitches aren't going to break as you're dancing. Very important that you use a doubling of the thread and knot it at the end. There's a muslin layer and a satin layer. So what they do is they separate it so that this piercing doesn't show on the outside. The stitches won't show. You won't pierce that outside. So we begin stitching, and you just catch that inner layer. And you just go ahead, and you're just going to begin to do that and stitch from the top one. Right? Very good. Okay, so that's one technique, and what she's going to do is she's going to just do what we call a running stitch. A running stitch is just where you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So the interior is going to look like this, and the exterior, the stitches don't show on the outside. So once again, you can see the center of that ribbon is right on that center mark, and I've followed the edges of the ribbon and gone just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I didn't pierce the outside of my fabric, and I went partially down. So we're going to go on to the elastic, and once again, you've cut your elastic, right, so you have your individual pieces. What I like to do, just for precision purposes, is I like to mark this seam right here is called the stay. That's the back of the shoe. I like to take my tape measure, and I like to mark 1 inch away from the stay. Right, so I'm going to mark 1 inch away from the stay on the exterior and the interior of the shoe. Right, so there it is, it's 1 inch away from the stay. You don't ever want to put something directly on the stay. That's your Achilles tendon, and it would rub your Achilles tendon. So our mark, you see the mark, the 1 inch mark away from the stay. And Kelsey, I'm going to actually ask you to take that elastic and go ahead and put it, you're going to put it on the inside. The middle of the elastic goes on that mark. Now what we're going to do is we are actually going to pierce the fabric on this one. You're going to go right through the fabric, right? And then you're going to actually jump the casing up here. This is the drawstring casing up here. You don't want to pierce that drawstring casing because then you're not going to be able to pull the drawstring. Right? So you're just going to keep jumping it back and forth. You go over and under. Just a simple in and out stitch. And I'm going to grab my finished product of that. Right, so here I am, I've got where I've jumped the drawstring casing. And it's just gone in and out. So this way you don't have to worry about the exterior looking sloppy, and you also don't have to worry about the heel blisters or heel sensitivity if somebody has it. This is a very efficient way of stitching that area so that it pulls it up towards the foot. Good. Now very important, and Kelsey, I was wondering if you could get your foot right up there. What you do is you're going to take, notice her foot is in more of a flexed position. I'm going to take this elastic, and I'm going to go to my other marking that's 1 inch away from the stay, and I'm going to mark how snug she likes it. Go ahead and point your foot. You don't want to do it while the dancer's foot is pointed because when she goes on flat, it's going to be too tight. You don't want to do it when she's completely flexed because then it's going to make it a little too loose. It's really in between. She's kind of in between a flex and a point. Right? And then right there, easiest thing to do is grab your pen again and then mark it. That feels pretty good, right? As far as snuggus? Okay, terrific, great. Okay, and then you cut off the excess. Right? And then go ahead and take off the shoe, and then you know exactly where to put that ribbon on the other side. Then our finished product of all of that looks like this. So I've got my elastic just as snug as I need it. I've got my ribbon going on the inside, right? Nice and neat on the outside, and you're ready to go for your first point class.